that scene in the Raiders of the Lost Ark where they tuck the Covenant in the back. And you get there at about, I think it's like 7:30 a.m. or 8 a.m. They give you what's called a pull, and you could fill in your little piece of paper and request some documents, and some machine goes and brings your box down, and they roll it out. And I spent weeks out there, and often you're not sure exactly what you're finding, and then occasionally you'll find something very revealing and something very helpful. And at one point I pulled records on the guardians and the guardianship. And I was at that point just trying to identify the name of a guardian and what Osage's finances this person had overseen. And when I pulled this book, it was just a little ledger. It had a fabric cover. It covered a few years. And when I was looking through it, I started to notice that it would have the name of the guardian and then several Osage underneath them. And I looked at one person who had 5 Osage's individuals whose finances this person had been in charge of. And somebody had written next to the Osage's name simply one word if the person had died. They just scribbled, often just in pencil, and they just wrote the word dead. And I noticed the name of the guardian, and it said, I had an Osage, and it said, dead. Then I noticed another Osage, and it said, dead. This person had had 5 Osage individuals' finances they've been in charge of, and the word dead had been written next to all 5. And I started to then go through, I had this moment of just just unsettled, couldn't quite figure out realize what I was looking at. And I began then to look at some of the other guardians. And I started to notice that somebody might have 11 Osage individuals whose finances they had overseen, and half of them had the word dead written next to them. Then we're talking in a span of a few years. You're looking at a 50% or 100% death rate. And what you start to realize when you're looking at this, you don't know, some of these deaths could have been from natural causes, but you know the death rate is defying any logical death rate. There's no way the Osage back then had lots of money, they had great doctors, there's no way their death rate is that much higher than the normal populace. And then what I tried to do was to look into some of these individual cases, and you start to find little trails of evidence in many of them, not all of them, but in many of them, where you had a complaint or a witness saying suspicion of poisoning. Or you trail the money and you find out that the headright or the wealth ended up in the guardian's hands. And what you realized in this document, and had I not kind of been spending so many time with Osage to kind of get a better sense of the story, what you realized in that little ledger, this little booklet, this old fabric-covered booklet, you're looking at hints of a systematic murder campaign. And it was a bureaucratic document. It had nothing else in it, just the names, and some bureaucrat had just written the word dead. And I often tried to wonder about that person who just kept writing that word next to so many Osage names.